Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second Superintendent Conference day for the 2021-22 school year. And once again, we collectively feel some level of disappointment that we can't, without some level of risk of close contact and all that goes along with that we cannot have the opening session in the auditorium. And hopefully this will be the last iteration of this format of an opening. Natasha repeatedly has encouraged me to be more positive in regards to my attitude on this. So that will be the last that I'll mention that. So let's get into the business of the day and start our conference day. Once again, welcome. And we'll take a few moments to share the overarching ideals of today, ideally providing everyone with the why, which is certainly essential, and also talk about the vision for the day, the plan for the day, and the essential points so that each of you have or get the largest return of investment of your time. And I want to thank Natasha Walkowitz for an outstanding job in coordinating today and planning for today, and also to the professional development or professional learning committee. So let's take a look at what the day has in store for us.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to reiterate thanks to all the folks involved in creating this day, including our professional learning team and Jerry Ann, who is key to making sure everything's organized, and everyone else, including Mike and John, for their insights to making today possible. We do have some focus for today, particularly our workshop center around social emotional learning, instructional technology, multi-tiered systems and supports known as MTSS, which encompass our academic and social emotional support learning, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. As we go through the day, I hope you can kind of think about how we are targeting our professional learning opportunities to provide a holistic learning experience for all of our students. And also, as you reflect and collaborate with your teams today, that you can come up with some ideas of what you might need more training in to make those ideas possible, and what might be beneficial to your learning in the future for students in our current climate.
Thanks, Natasha. Throughout the 30-day, all faculty and staff will participate in one session of professional learning. Grade levels, subject areas, etc. will articulate, reflect, and collaborate during the PORT professional learning period and reflection segments.
Thanks, John. So just to clarify on that, the one session, we do have some personnel that are in extended sessions of professional learning, some of which are actually all day. So basically the way the day will play out is once the introduction, which is what we're all experiencing right now, and each of you should be in the location of your first session at this point. We'll take a short break, and that'll be followed by session 2. You'll also have an opportunity to break for lunch, and that'll be followed by the autonomy of your PORT professional planning period, which, like Natasha said, for CTLE reasons is now being called the PORT professional learning period, but this does not have the same ring to it as PPPP, PPLP. It just doesn't work. But anyway, this will be followed by each building will have an opportunity to have a reflection session with their building principal as well. So that pretty much captures our day. And Natasha, if you want to take the next slide.
Thanks, Mike. So today is all about connecting the dots. We've had a history of learning for the last 5 years of introducing new technologies into our learning experience for students, as well as teachers' college work, and a whole host of other initiatives like social emotional learning and DEI. And today is in this year is really about focusing those many directives and connecting those to each other so they're one continuous learning experience. And we also hope that we start our committees by focusing on shared decision making and increasing participation.
So here are a few of the committees that we want to highlight. We have the Education Committee, the Technology Committee. Natasha will provide an overview of those, but certainly there's some inherent connection there. And it's really our goal is in implementing these committees is to do, as Natasha said, really start connecting the dots in a more effective manner. So, Natasha, you want to give an overview of education and technology?
Of course I would, Mike. Thank you. The Education Committee really focuses on the curriculum and instructional focus for our students and teachers. And we'll be working together to make some decisions and recommendations, what we move forward to Mike and the board for instructional approvals, looking at the scope and sequence, and providing kind of a timeline of some of those big initiatives that have to do with curriculum and instruction. We jumped the gun. We have our first meeting this week on Wednesday. So we're happy to kick off our first Education Committee meeting for this year, this week. And thank you for everyone for signing up in advance. Secondly, we have our Technology Committee. So there will be some interconnectedness since we do have a large focus on instructional technology. So that committee will be looking at our technology initiatives on a larger scope, as well as the instructional technology in the classroom. John?
So I'll be involved with the Health and Wellness Committee and the Safety Committee. And with the Health and Wellness Committee, we're just going to look to continue to our efforts to explore and improve the health and well-being of not only just our student body, but our staff as well. And with the Safety Committee, we'll continue to meet to ensure that we're providing a safe educational environment for all.
And to wrap it all up, our Professional Learning Committee, although Mike is struggling with the shift in direction from professional development to professional learning, we might be integrating with each of these committees to develop what needs to happen on these professional learning days, as well as what might need to happen during the scope of the school year, such as Teachers College being integrated within the school day.
Excellent. So those are a few of our central committees, really steering entities. And there are a few that some of you might have an interest in joining for this, in some regards, would be the first year, or we're kind of resurrecting, for lack of a better term, a committee. So specifically the Student Voice Committee. This would be for the middle school and high school primarily. And, we'll look to begin a committee, ideally with a better name than Student Voice, but that will help us gather information and feedback from our students. Again, how do we improve the educational experience and all that we offer for our students? The DEI Committee, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This was launched last year. We're looking to continue this ideal, all with the central tenet that we will provide a learning environment that makes every student feel as valued and as essential as they truly are. How do we create programs, opportunities, and a culture that allows every student to excel to the greatest extent possible, but also feel as included and incorporated to the school as possible? And despite what one might hear in the media or elsewhere, this has absolutely no link or connection to CRT or critical race theory. This is about celebrating the diversity and equity in our schools and providing the best for our students. So no connection to CRT, nothing at all. And then finally, community partnerships. This is something that was really thriving in our school district pre-COVID. we established some outstanding partnerships with some businesses, community-based entities, and we're looking to really recapture that momentum and really recapture the value of those partnerships. So these three will be also part of the survey that's sent out, and certainly I encourage you to contemplate joining any or all of these committees. Oh, and what about Choose? Some people may be asking that. Well, Choose was actually a product of COVID. So it was really a combination of the committees for health, wellness, safety, and education. And we just scrambled up the letters to come up with an acronym. So it was really the goal of that was just to combine the major committees in order to effectively provide instruction and all the other options that we needed to address throughout the closing of schools and then ultimately in the reopening and the reopenings of school. So Choose ideally will be going away forever, and we'll go back to our previous model of education, health and wellness, as well as safety.
So you're probably asking yourself, how does one join a committee?
John, I'm so glad you asked. So we will be sending out a survey this week asking for folks to join on those committees that we just discussed. Our education committee, like I said, we put out a notice in advance. And if anyone wants to rejoin our professional learning community, you can certainly do that as well. So we'll be asking folks to just sign up through that survey.
And how often does each committee meet?
Great question, John. We'll be meeting, and each committee varies depending on really the scope of work that needs to be done. So some might meet 4 times a year, some might meet once or twice a month, depending on the needs of each committee. And I can answer your next question, which was when do the committees meet? So some might meet during the day, before or after school, or even in the evening. So some of our community members or board members can attend.
So people leave busy lives. What if we can't make a meeting?
Yes, we do understand that, everyone has other obligations now and again that might interfere, such as professional development happening in their school, or maybe a family obligation at home and can't attend 1 or 2 meetings throughout the year. That is just fine. We just hope that you can communicate that to each committee, and we can, fill you in and work to fill you in on anything that might be missed out. Great questions, Sean.
Those were great questions, John, and really great answers also, Natasha. So, and to the last point, what if you can't make every meeting? The most important component here is we want participation. So don't let the fact that you may have to miss a meeting or some meetings keep you from joining a committee. We want you on that committee. So the next slide is one that we were certainly hoping we wouldn't have to do, and that is for the weekly COVID-19 screening. This is the reason why we have to do this is a mandate from the governor's office as well as the commissioner for the New York State Department of Health. So in summary, if one is unvaccinated and they work in a school setting, they will need to do the weekly testing. You can avoid the weekly testing if you provide proof of vaccination. So to provide some context of why ultimately we're shifting from an original plan, unfortunately, there was a mistake in the sending of an email 2 weeks ago in which the recipients were sent or were on the to line of the email as opposed to on the BCC line. And this certainly resulted in a reaction of some that received the email, noting that it was also brought to our attention that trust was impacted by this email mistake. So at that point, it was really decided that it would probably be in everyone's best interest to follow the protocol that several other school districts are using, and that is by using an outside agency, removing school personnel to the greatest extent possible. And in that case, that's Kristen Lopez and myself. from the center of the logistics. So we're finalizing the plans for what our new revised plan will be. Unfortunately, that's the direction we are looking to go. And it will likely involve an outside agency. And again, once the logistics are ironed out, we'll let everyone know. We should have this set up to begin as soon as next week. And really probably the latest would be the following week. It is important to note a couple of things. Unvaccinated personnel are to participate in the weekly screening. Vaccinated personnel may participate in the weekly screening. So if you signed up for the weekly screening, but you are actually vaccinated, and now that we're shifting up our protocols and switching the way we're doing this testing, just let Kristen Lopez know via email if you would no longer like to participate in the weekly testing. It's not a problem. It's just that it will allow us to take you off the list before we begin to contract with an outside agency. It's also important to note that if you tested positive for COVID-19 for approximately 90 days, you can continue to yield a positive test result. So after the initial test result. So while this applies to nearly zero of our faculty and staff, that could change as the year goes on and the testing goes on. So if you are participating in the weekly testing, if you were to test positive, you would not continue the weekly testing for 90 days because it could keep yielding positive tests. Similarly, if you tested positive in the past, you should let us know if it was within 90 days, because again, that would put off your start date in order to begin the weekly testing. That came out much more confusing than I expected or hoped to do. So let me just leave it with, if you tested positive this school year and are unvaccinated, send me an email or give me a call and we'll talk it out. We'll figure it out. So the other thing is, what happens if someone tests positive doing our weekly testing? Well, it's really the same as if you tested positive any other way. You go into a pharmacy or going to your doctor and you test positive. It's the same end result. You will need to follow the quarantine and isolation protocol for a positive test result. Depending on your individual history of using New York State paid family sick leave, the absences may be covered by this act. For most, that will be the case. For some, it will not. So we will address each on a case-by-case basis. But if you have any questions at all, again, do not hesitate to contact me or your building principal regarding the New York State paid family sick leave. And next up, we'll provide an overview of our capital project, and I'll turn it over to John Tim for that.
Thanks, Mike. So in terms of the capital project, prior to the school year, some brickwork was done. You can see a picture of the middle school there. It's called what you call repointing. They actually washed the front and repointed, and it looks amazing. They did a great job. The next phases of the project will go out to bid this month, and receipt of these bids will be in mid-December, which is kind of a cool point of the project. We'll get to identify some of the people that are doing the work, so it's pretty exciting. We're moving along. Thank you.
Very exciting. And a bulk of that work will really begin towards the end of the school year and, of course, through the summer. So while not all in this welcome was as positive as Natasha would have liked or expected from me, no pun intended with the positivity, we do sincerely hope that you get a lot out of today, time for professional learning, as well as time for some professional collaboration and reflection. So with that, we hope each of you enjoy your day.
Have a great day.
Have a great one.